The anesthesia from the surgery hadn't worn off yet, and I was sobbing and blubbering as I clung to the doctor I had a crush on for years. Introduce your child to someone as handsome as you, I told him when I came to. The doctor I'd been secretly in love with was now my boyfriend. That morning, I was in unbearable abdominal pain. I thought it was just from eating too much and didn't think much of it at the time. But the pain got so bad I couldn't even walk. So I had to call for an ambulance. At the hospital, I was already in a daze. I vaguely remember that the doctor's voice was really pleasant and his hands were warm. When I woke up, a nurse was grinning at me, eyes sparkling. Do you remember what you said after the anesthesia kicked in? I tried to recall, but my mind was blank, and I shook my head helplessly. So the nurse started recounting the whole story after the anesthesia. I had been crying and telling her that I didn't have a partner. To calm me down, she pointed to the doctor nearby and suggested that he chat with me. I said, chatting won't help. He needs to give me his contact info and be my partner. I even added, is he handsome? At this point, the nurse couldn't stop laughing. Hearing this, my face turned as red as a monkey's butt. Even though I'm 25, I've never been in a relationship because I'm too shy. Who knew that after anesthesia, I'd turn into a social butterfly? Riley, how are you feeling? The familiar voice made my face turn crimson. I buried my head in the pillow and answered in a mosquito-like voice, I'm fine. My face got even redder. The nurse smiled at Matthew and said, I'm leaving your girlfriend in your care. She left, closing the door behind her. Seeing Matthew's unsmiling face made me feel a bit awkward. Sorry for the misunderstanding. Don't worry, I'll explain everything. Explain that I'm your boyfriend to others, he asked as he helped me sit up. The faint lavender scent from him, mixed with the hospital's disinfectant, was making me dizzy. He already looked handsome, but in that white coat, he was even more stunning. I was momentarily stunned and forgot to respond. Do I look good? He asked, suddenly leaning closer. His body scent was stronger, making my heart race. Looking at his alluring face, I swallowed hard. If I moved a little closer, we could kiss right there. But I was too scared to even breathe. He suddenly laughed. Looks like someone has the desire but not the courage. He hit the nail on the head. Ever since he moved in next door, I've been captivated. I still clearly remember the first time I saw him. That day, I was carrying a lot of fruit, and somehow, it all spilled when I was opening the door. I happened to run into him coming out with some trash. He was wearing a white t-shirt, a checkered shirt over it, light blue straight-leg jeans, and a white cap. I was just as smitten then as I am now, especially when he said, don't rush, I'll help you. His deep voice combined with his sweet smile really hit me hard. To thank him, I shared some of the fruit my mom had sent me with him. To my surprise, he turned it into jam and gave it back to me. It was so sweet, truly sweet, and it melted my heart. Since then, I've been keeping an eye on everything he does. He goes running in the mornings, so to casually run into him, I changed my night owl habits to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to bed at 11 p.m. But whenever we met, it was always, hi, hello, and most of the time, he was the one to greet me first. Almost a year had passed, and I didn't expect things to turn out like this. I certainly didn't expect him to be a doctor, or for our relationship to progress in this way. I'm ashamed to admit that after crushing on him for a year, I didn't even have his contact info. So once I got it, the first thing I did was check his social media. I was surprised to find that despite his feed looking quiet, he posts almost every day. But as I scrolled, I noticed something odd. Every post seemed so familiar. Just moved in and saw the one I've been thinking about. I don't want to seem too eager and scare her off. The picture was of the strawberries I gave him. Do we know each other before? I wondered as I scrolled. So excited. She made me a cake. It was really sweet, just like her. And her strawberry heart. I might not be able to sleep tonight. The picture showed him turning to halves of a strawberry into a heart shape. I smiled and even laughed out loud. How adorable and attentive he was. That cake was indeed made by me. A unique one. I originally wanted to draw a heart, but used strawberries to make it less obvious. I didn't expect him to notice. Seeing this made my heart race and my hands tremble. It wasn't just me who was feeling this way. I kept scrolling. Today's my birthday. I went to her cake shop to order a cake but didn't see her. I'm so disappointed. I don't know if it's because it's my birthday, but I really want to see her. I cooked a big meal and waited, but she didn't come back. I even knocked on her door out of worry, but the picture showed a heart with a crack. At this point, I wanted to strangle my best friend. She dragged me along for a month of breakup blues, causing me to miss his birthday. I quickly marked his birthday on my calendar and repeated it in my mind for double assurance. No matter what, I was determined to celebrate it with him next year. Did she move to keep track of her return? I've been sleeping on the couch like a bed. I've decided that if I see her again, I'll ask for her contact info. At least a phone number. The picture was of the determined gray wolf from a popular cartoon. I really wanted to hug him. I was so emotional that I almost cried. I took a deep breath and continued scrolling. So excited I'm spinning around. She's back, but I asked for her Wechat and phone number. and she politely refused. Does that mean I have no chance now? So, in the future, will it be? The picture showed someone alone in a quiet space. Seeing this made me want to be alone, too. That day, my best friend's ex suddenly returned from another city, causing me to rush back home in a state of disarray, not even having washed my face or brushed my teeth. When I was about to open the door, it swung open from the other side, and I was frowsy. I was wearing pajamas and looking disheveled. I wanted to make a good impression on the person I liked, so I couldn't hear what he said clearly. I just responded, "Sorry, I'm in a hurry to get to work." Thinking about this, I buried my face in my pillow and reorganized my thoughts before continuing to scroll. The posts were from today and there was more than one. I was so excited, I almost screamed, my fingers swiping eagerly on the screen. Just as I was about to savor the moment, the phone rang. It was my best friend. I had an impulse to cut off our date with my boyfriend. I answered with a tone that was less than friendly. "Get to the point." My best friend was initially stunned, then excitedly screamed, "My brother is getting married." I had been planning to lie down comfortably and listen to the gossip. Even though I'd known my best friend for over a decade, I'd never met her brother, but I'd heard plenty about him. Handsome, good grades, extremely aloof. My best friend whispered, "If my brother didn't like guys, I definitely want you as my sister-in-law." So I had to ask, "Did your parents approve?" "Yes. They're already preparing the wedding gifts and everything. My brother is completely in love." She then changed the subject. "By the way, why didn't I see you at the bakery today?" Oh no, I forgot to tell her, because I was so absorbed in checking his social media. I had something to do today. "No, actually, I've been busy these days. Please take care of the shop. I'll treat you to a meal when I get back." I hurriedly ended the call. I couldn't let her know I was in the hospital. First, because I value romantic relationships over friendships, and during this special time, I only want to focus on developing my relationship with Matthew. Second, because when she was hospitalized last year, I deliberately enjoyed eating crayfish, bear, and barbecue in front of her. Both reasons are crucial to me. I can't let her find out I'm hospitalized. That evening, I went to the front desk to get some clothes. The normally gentle nurses were now glaring at me with anger. I was confused, wondering if I had done something wrong. Had my feelings for Matthew been exposed? Were they all my rivals? I braced myself, already thinking about how to handle the situation. A familiar nurse came out of the ward, paused when she saw me, and then her face turned cold. This was strange, since she had been the one teasing us before. "What's going on? Why are you all looking at me like that?" I asked cautiously. An irritable nurse huffed and set down her things. "Still pretending? You seem like such a well-behaved girl, yet you did something like this." Bah! Her words completely enraged me. Although I appeared mild-mannered, I had my limits. "Explain yourself." I snapped back. "What did I do? Don't you know?" She was being held back by her colleagues, but still wouldn't stop. "I don't know." I was getting really frustrated. All right, this is a hospital. Keep your voice down." The familiar nurse stepped in to stop us. "Akila, calm down." She pressed Akila down into a chair and turned to me. "Little sister, did you send photos of you and Matthew to someone?" Her question left me confused. What photos? Stop playing dumb." Akila walked up to me. "If you hadn't sent photos to others, how would an internet influencer have posted them online, causing a backlash against Matthew? Now Matthew is being called into the director's office and might face disciplinary action. Are you happy now?" "What did you say? Someone slandering Matthew?" Xiaojing pulled out her phone and showed me some online posts. As I scrolled through, I found that the photo originally posted was from a female influencer who had previously confessed her feelings to Matthew. She had taken a sneaky photo of Matthew looking at me with a sharp gaze and captioned it, claiming that the doctor was secretly molesting patients. The comments below were unforgiving, with people attacking Matthew without knowing the full story. "These idiots must have brains just for decoration, and that woman just wait until I see her. I'll make sure she pays." I turned to the nurses around me and said, "This isn't something I post. Please don't make baseless accusations without evidence and tarnish the hospital's reputation." The nurses, who were used to seeing me as a gentle, demure person, were stunned into silence by my sharp retort. Great. All my efforts to maintain a good image in the hospital for Matthew over the past few days had now been ruined. Oh well, now that things have come to this, a few more words won't make a difference. So, I asserted my claim to Xiaojing, the nurse who kept referring to Matthew as my Matthew. "And he's mine too. Stop talking about him as if he's just yours. It's uncomfortable to hear." I sighed with satisfaction after saying that. In the hallway on the way back, someone stopped me. "Are you the one?" Although I was still angry, I took a deep breath and said, "Is there something I can help you with?" Instead of answering, she scrutinized me from top to bottom and walked around me. Her gaze was like that of someone examining an animal, which I found unpleasant. "If there's nothing else, I'll be going back to my room." "Hey, don't leave," She blocked my path. I want to talk to you alone about Matthew. Honestly, if she had mentioned Matthew, I wouldn't have wanted to be alone with her, because she exuded a palpable hostility. This place is quiet enough. Go ahead. I wanted to wrap up the conversation quickly and return to my room. I really didn't want to stay with her any longer than necessary. She sneered disdainfully and said, "Break up with Matthew. Nice. Just when I had a confrontation with a bunch of people. Now here's another one. Does she really think I'm some naive pushover?" Before I could say anything, she arrogantly flipped her hair and continued, "I'm his childhood friend. I know him well. If it weren't for you tempting him, he wouldn't have chosen you. You're just a two-faced schemer, sweet in public but poisonous behind the scenes. I can't stand by and watch you ruin him." Me, tempting. I was completely bewildered. Seeing her haughty face, I suddenly realized she must be that failed confessing influencer, same one Xiaojing has shown me pictures of before. I had even visited her latest stream to learn more about her. But this doesn't seem like the same person I was warned about. Noticing my confusion, she began to deflect. "Stop pretending. You're the one who had someone take and post those photos of you and Matthew, right? Just so he'd acknowledge you as his girlfriend. I know you're capable of such sleazy tricks." Her voice grew sharper. "Do you know that once those photos are online, the hospital will face negative repercussions, and Matthew will definitely be fired? So, you're threatening me now, though sometimes I'm not the sharpest." Her tone and arrogance were quite clear. She proudly crossed her legs and folded her arms. "Half right. First, I want you to know your place. Second, I want Matthew to understand what kind of woman is truly suitable for him." I gave her a dismissive once-over and sneered. "I don't know what kind of woman is best for him, but I do know that someone like—" I paused, giving her another look. "Someone like you isn't." She looked infuriated and slammed the table. "You—" I cut her off. "Me, I'm perfectly fine. Did you think I wouldn't recognize you without your filters? I want to ask you something that you know. Spreading false rumors is illegal. You claim to like Matthew, but you're defaming him. Are you trying to take advantage of the situation to win his favor?" Her face was burning with rage as she shouted, "Rumors? How else would you explain that photo? If he gets criticized, he'll only clear things up once we're together again. This is his punishment for rejecting me. As long as you two can't be together, it's fine." Her face was now triumphant. I leaned closer and whispered in her ear, "Oh, really? Without his permission? Sharing and uploading someone else's photos can be considered a violation of their right to their image. Oh, you might not be familiar with the law, so I'll let it slide this time. But let's talk ethics. You might not get it. As his childhood friend and neighbor for years, you knew that what you were doing could hurt him, yet you did it anyway, all while pretending to act in his best interest." My voice grew louder, attracting more attention. I wanted everyone to hear, so I continued, "In reality, you're just seeking revenge for your failed confession, and hoping he and I break up so you can get your chance. Stop hiding behind the guise of righteousness. This is all about your own selfish desires, isn't it?" Her embarrassment turned to fury, and she raised her hand to hit me. I grabbed her arm. "Ladies don't resort to physical violence. Miss, did my words hit a nerve? Are you all right? Did she bully you?" Matthew's voice interrupted. Seeing Matthew, she instantly transformed into a tearful little green tea, raising her arm to complain. "Matthew, look at your girlfriend." She tried to hit me. I was only pointing out the impact of the online situation on you. Matthew didn't even look at her, but carefully examined me before turning to her and saying, "Let me make this clear one last time. Stay out of my affairs. I used to consider you like a sister, but now you're just a stranger. Also, I'll be suing you for defamation. Be prepared." Hearing this, she pushed her way through the crowd of onlookers and ran away. Matthew took my hand with an apologetic look. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she would." I shook my head and waved my hand. "It's not your fault. I know. I'll head back to my room now. Bye." I quickly returned to my room, feeling anxious. I wondered if Matthew had seen my confrontational behavior and whether it would make him dislike me. During my stay in the hospital, I realized just how popular Matthew was. People of all ages admired him, both for his looks and his medical skills. The previous incident didn't seem to have affected him much, but that influencer definitely rattled me. His popularity made me feel insecure. I had originally planned to confess after leaving the hospital, but now I had to move up my timeline. "Are you on duty tonight?" I asked, pretending not to care as I took a big sip of porridge. "It's so hot." I overacted, my face turning red and my tongue sticking out like a little puppy. He quickly set down the porridge and came over. "Let me see." He poured me a glass of ice water and frowned. Today's batch was a bit rushed and still a bit hot. I looked at him with wide eyes as if I had discovered something new. "So, did you make this porridge?" He chuckled and lightly tapped my head. "Where would you find anyone packing food in a thermos?" He was so sweet. He had stayed up all night to make porridge for me, and to be honest, I was deeply touched. "These next few days will be tough on you, but once you're out of the hospital, I'll cook something special for you," he said, tidying up. "Good looking, a great cook, and no wonder so many women are interested in him. Every time Matthew came to my room, the number of nurses and strange women outside at least doubled. And there were even a bunch of little kids calling him Big Brother. When Matthew wasn't looking, I made a funny face at the kids. Unexpectedly, an 8-year-old girl in a princess dress walked right in, clinging to Matthew's arm and sweetly asking, "Dr. Brother, who's prettier, me or the auntie? Why should he be called Big Brother, and I'm auntie?" This little girl. I watched Matthew, also curious about his answer. Matthew gently removed the little girl's hand and answered seriously, "Everyone is the most beautiful in the eyes of someone special to them. She's especially important to me, so she's definitely the most beautiful, irreplaceable." The little girl laughed and clapped. "That's just like how my dad answers." "Great job." The kids scattered, leaving me feeling embarrassed. My face was so red, I wanted to hide under the covers. Those impromptu romantic words were quite overwhelming. Matthew gazed at me with an expectant look in his eyes. "What do you think of what I just said?" "Just to clarify, it's not just for the kids. He really value you. And I like you." His words made me feel like I was burning up. I slowly pulled the covers up over my head and whispered, "I like you too." He suddenly moved closer, his lips almost touching mine. "What did you say?" I didn't hear. I thought he genuinely didn't hear. So I tried to sit up to say it clearly, but my mouth ended up brushing against his nose, startling me like a frightened turtle, and I quickly retreated under the covers, too shy to speak. Sorry about that." Matthew seemed startled as well. "I didn't mean to. I understand." After this incident, things between Matthew and me became a bit awkward. Even accidentally touching fingers made us blush for ages. When we stared at each other, we'd also blush. He took me out for a walk, holding hands. Our palms were sweaty, our smiles were stiff, and we walked in unison, like we were stepping on each other's feet. "This is my first relationship." To break the ice, I decided to speak up first. To my surprise, he said it at the same time as me. We looked at each other and laughed, which eased the tension a lot. We felt much more natural with each other. "Do you feel pressured if I say I want to date you with marriage as the goal?" Matthew asked, a bit shy but with a determined look. Could I tell him that I felt the same way? From the moment I met him, I wanted a lifelong relationship with him. Seeing that I didn't answer, he thought I was shy and quickly added, "It's okay. I just mentioned it casually. A lifelong commitment does need time. I'm not in a hurry. Take your time to get to know me." What should I do? Hearing him say that made me anxious, but it seemed I couldn't bring myself to say it. After all, we had just started dating. In the silence, I saw him take out a card and a few folded A4 sheets of paper from his pocket. He handed them to me while explaining, "This is my salary card, and these are my credit report and medical checkup forms. I'm not rushing you. I just want you to know more about me. Don't feel pressured." He sighed heavily, but his face was red up to his neck. Seeing his flustered and shy expression, I impulsively stood on my tiptoes and tried to give him a light peck on the cheek to show him how much I liked him. But because of the nervousness and my height, I ended up cramping and toppled over onto him. The atmosphere became awkward, and our gaze locked even more awkwardly. Cough. He cleared his throat. His face flushed. "There's no need to be so excited." Matthew's warmth made my heart race. I quickly tried to explain as I got up. "I just wanted to kiss you before I could even stand up straight." Matthew wrapped me in his arms, pulling me closer. "Let me handle this kind of thing from now on." Before I could even blush, his lips were already on mine. It was just a brief kiss, but it left me utterly dizzy. As he was about to take me back to my room, he whispered in my ear, "There are too many people outside. Once you're discharged, we can have a proper kiss." When I came back to my senses, he was already gone, and my face was burning with embarrassment. He must have misunderstood that I was silent on the way back because I was unhappy with him, so he thought I was just a desperate woman. Thinking of this, I wrapped myself up in bed like a cocoon and thought, "Help, why do I always embarrass myself in front of him?" After a while of silence, I sat her day up again. I needed to explain this properly. I'm not that kind of casual woman. It's just that I have feelings for him. But that makes it even harder to explain. As a dating novice, I could only turn to my experienced best friend for help. As soon as my best friend picked up the phone, she let out an excited squeal that made me hold back what I was about to say. "Girl, I was just about to call you. Remember I told you I have a sister-in-law?" Oh, yes. What's up?" "I've been so busy with Matthew that I've forgotten to gossip with my best friend. Let me tell you, my sister-in-law is super fierce. Can you imagine?" "Oh my gosh. Tell me more." Her voice stirred up my curiosity. "My sister-in-law tackled my brother in the hospital, and it was in the garden." "No way. That fierce." I had completely forgotten about my own situation today. "How do you know? Did you see it yourself? Was it that intense?" "Speaking of this, I'm a bit annoyed. Remember I told you about that little green tea named Stella who used to be our neighbor? She had a crush on my brother and was rejected recently. So she took revenge by spreading rumors about my brother and sister-in-law online. She paused, but my sister-in-law is pretty tough. She scolded her back, and my brother even sued her. Stella didn't give up and continued to spread rumors and photos of my brother and sister-in-law. Seriously, that little green tea is so disgusting, but the story sounded oddly familiar. Rumors, hospital, childhood friends, lawsuit. Tackled. A bold idea suddenly popped into my head. I swallowed hard. What's your brother's name again? Matthew. Didn't I mention it before? You're not a blanket. How does your brother have the last name Murphy? My brother takes my mom's last name, and I take my dad's, my best friend said, realizing something was off. Hold on. Don't hang up. A minute later, my best friend's voice was filled with shock. So you're my sister-in-law, and the person in the hospital was you. Before I could react, the voice on the other end said, Sister-in-law, I'm bringing the whole family over to see you. Her tone clearly indicated she was upset that I had kept the dating and hospitalization secret. Is there still time to explain? It seemed too late. I vaguely heard her call for the Blanchetts. So, is it still okay for me to get discharged now? Although I've met the Blanchetts a few times and they've been nice to me, the relationship between a daughter's friend and a daughter-in-law should be different, right? Thinking of this, I immediately became anxious. I wanted to text Matthew, but he was on a night shift today. What should I do? While I was anxiously pondering, Matthew appeared in my hospital room. He immediately took my hand and, afraid of any misunderstanding, quickly explained, I didn't know you were friends with my sister until just now. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have had to wait so long. You must have forgotten, he said gently, pinching my nose with a loving, helpless smile. He looked into my eyes and held my hand. Last year, at the hospital entrance, when I accidentally bumped into you, I hadn't even had a chance to apologize before you said it was okay. You smiled so brightly then. You don't know. That bump landed straight on my heart. Your smile was so sweet, it touched my soul. Since that day, I bought from almost every bakery near us, just to find out which one was yours. His reminder made me remember my best friend had fainted in the kitchen, and I had taken her to the hospital, not even having time to change out of my bakery clothes. When I got to the hospital, someone from the bakery told me that there was a sudden power outage. I hurried back to clean up the mess after the Blanchetts arrived. In my rush, I hadn't paid much attention to his appearance, and even his apology went unheard. Recalling this, my face turned red. So you moved here because of me? I was wondering why the bakery's business had gone up so much last year, with people frequently ordering cakes and afternoon teas, all from the hospital. Was that because of you? Matthew's face suddenly turned red as well. Because your cakes are really delicious. Everyone likes them, and I like them the most, sis. Sister-in-law, my best friend suddenly called out, stretching her arms towards me and interrupting Matthew. Matthew and I were startled by her sudden shout. Matthew quickly reacted, pulling me into a possessive hug. She's mine, so don't even think about it. His embrace made me stay still, mainly to avoid him hearing my racing heart. My best friend rolled her eyes. So, when did you two start secretly dating? Mind your language. You need to make a good impression on your sister-in-law, or your pocket money might. My best friend immediately changed her attitude, smiling so widely her mouth nearly reached her ears. Sister-in-law, do your shoulders hurt? And your legs? Let me give you a massage. All right, enough. Mrs. Blanket came in with a bunch of things, smiling so much her face seemed to be stuck in that position. I was so startled, I nodded and greeted her like a student. Hello, Mrs. Blanket. Matthew quickly stepped forward to take the items. Mom, didn't we agree to wait until Reddy was discharged to take her home? Now you've come and surprised her. Look how shocked she is. Mrs. Blanket began to tease. Honestly, I always wanted to set you two up. You kept finding excuses, but now you're nervous. Matthew looked embarrassed. I didn't know you were talking about Riley. If I had known, Matthew's mom chuckled. Oh, we know you can't wait to marry her. Can you? She then turned to me, holding my hand. So, Riley, what do you think? Great. I'm fumbling at a crucial moment. Stuttering, Matthew sighed deeply. Mom, marriage is a big deal. Riley needs time. You can still date after getting married, right? Mrs. Blanket looked at me. I nodded obediently. Yes, whatever Mrs. Blanket said was right. Matthew, now excited and red-faced, said, can we arrange a meeting with both families once she's discharged? What do Matthew's parents like? Mature and sunny. What don't they like? My hair seems a bit long. Do I need a trim? Seeing him flail around like a child, it seemed that the accidental slip about dating after marriage might not be such a bad thing after all. As for the online controversy, with Matthew's parents clarifying the situation and our engagement, the focus shifted entirely to Stella. People called her a heartless schemer who couldn't stand others being happy. Some even reported the products she sold as substandard, leading to stomach issues and allergic reactions. In no time, she became the target of public disdain, and there were even incidents of people throwing paint at her house, forcing her to move. See, Karma really is a thing, my best friend said, laughing uncontrollably. At that moment, Matthew came back from work. Seeing her pulling me into a beer session, he gave her a light smack on the head. You're coming over too often lately, interrupting our time alone. Riley's stomach isn't great, and you keep having her drink. Do you want me to kick you out? He said, taking the beer away. My best friend gave me a pleading look. Given the friend and sister-in-law situation, how could I not help? She's been dumped again, so she's not in the best mood. I hurriedly grabbed a few bottles of beer. After all, I had almost given up drinking after moving in with Matthew, so when I finally had the chance, I wasn't about to let it slip by. My best friend, terrified that her brother might kick her out in the middle of the night, nodded eagerly, like a little chip packing at rice, saying, "Yes, that's right, isn't it?" Sweet moments always pass by so joyfully. I've been living with Matthew for 6 months now. During this time, I've found that I'm increasingly dependent on him. He takes care of me with such attentiveness. In the 6 months we've been together, we really argue seriously. Occasionally, we had small disagreements, but before we go to bed, we always talk things over and resolve any issues. Even my own mother has complained about how well Matthew treats me, saying, with her temper, only you can tolerate her. Matthew often ruffles my hair and says, girlfriends are meant to be pampered. Besides, I'm so boring and busy, and she hasn't complained about me. I'm the lucky one. I snuggled up to him, wrapping my arms around him, and asked, so when do you plan to marry Miss Sue? He became so excited that he was almost incoherent. Really? Can we? Are you sure? I've always known that he dreams of marrying me. I've heard him talking in his sleep several times. Riley, I finally married you. We're getting married. He would laugh joyfully in his sleep, but since he was worried that proposing might put pressure on me, we agreed to live together for a year before getting married. When I suddenly brought it up, could he not be happy? That same day, Matthew arranged for our families to meet and discuss the wedding. The date was set for this Saturday. On Saturday, he was as nervous as if he were getting married himself. He got up early. Even though the plans were already set in stone, he was as anxious as someone about to give a speech, constantly kneeling and repeating, Mom and Dad, please entrust Riley to me. I will spend my life making her laugh and keeping her happy, watching his awkward actions. I couldn't help but smile happily, like a kid watching a classmate nervously recite in front of the class. But plans always change. As we were about to enter the hotel, Matthew suddenly received a phone call and looked panicked. Riley, tell my parents I'm sorry. There's an urgent issue at the hospital. I need to go back. My parents understand Matthew's job, so they weren't upset. I wasn't either, though I felt a bit disappointed. I was really looking forward to this day, but I imagine Matthew was even more disappointed. His anticipation was just as great as mine. That afternoon, I saw news about a city being locked down due to an infectious disease. It was reported that the disease spreads quickly and can be fatal. I anxiously went to the hospital lobby to wait for him, staying from the afternoon until 10 p.m. When I finally saw him, I hugged him tightly as if he might disappear the next moment. I knew he had responsibilities as a doctor, and I knew that my actions might only add to his stress, but I couldn't control myself. Matthew also held me tightly, resting his chin on my hair. I can't trust anyone else with you. He pulled me back and looked into my eyes with unwavering determination. So, I'll take good care of myself. And of course, I hope you take good care of yourself too. Yeah, I'll wait for you to marry me, I said, burying my head in his chest, trying to dry the tears that had fallen. That night, he went back to pack, continually hugging me and saying, wait for me to come back and take good care of yourself. I don't remember how many times he kissed me. I don't remember how many times I reminded him to stay safe, or how many medicines and clothes I prepared for him. When I sent him off, I suddenly felt a pang of regret, but the car was already far away. I chased the car until my legs were too weak to continue, crying out in agony, you must come back safely and marry me. The virus spread quickly, and many cities had cases. Lockdowns were everywhere, and people were on edge. I was anxious every day. Although I really followed the news, I started watching it obsessively. Whenever I saw reports of people dying from the disease, I get so nervous that my heart felt like it was leaping into my throat. Matthew, knowing I was worried, often sent me short messages like, don't worry, take care of yourself. I wanted to send him messages saying how much I missed him, but I ended up writing, yeah, you too. Mom came over to stay with me, and she's been feeding me, so while I put on some weight many times, Matthew would send messages at 3 a.m. To avoid missing any of his messages, I kept my phone by my pillow, waiting for his replies, so I could only sleep once I knew he was safe. Recent news reported many deaths, making it even harder for me to sleep. Several times I tried video calling him, but he never answered, which made me even more anxious. Can I hear your voice? I'm so worried about you. I read that this disease causes respiratory issues and makes it hard for people to speak. As time passed, I grew more desperate. I even threatened him in a message, if you don't come back safely, I'll forget you and marry someone else. But I never sent it. Instead, I wrote, "You must take care of yourself and stay safe." That night, I couldn't sleep at all, holding my phone tightly and constantly checking Matthew's profile picture. At 2 a.m., he finally replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I just miss you so much. I have good news, he'll be back next week." Seeing this message, I cried even harder. I really couldn't lose him. He was the one I was meant to marry. So I replied, "I'll be waiting with the household registration book." Matthew responded immediately, "See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau, little wife." Haha, that night, he chatted with me more than he had in the entire month he'd been gone. I smiled like a fool, reading each word of our conversation. Tonight, I still couldn't sleep, but this time it was from excitement. Perhaps it was because of the restless month, but my stomach felt uncomfortable, and I didn't want to eat anything. My mom kept urging me to eat more, fearing that when Matthew came back, he'd be upset to see me like this. I tried, but even a little food made me feel bloated and uncomfortable. I couldn't even stand the smell of cake anymore. During Matthew's absence, I kept making mistakes with baking, and my best friend insisted I stop and sell cakes outside instead. She noticed me vomiting in the bathroom and asked with raised eyebrows, "When did your period come?" I thought for a moment and calculated, it seems to be delayed by half a month. Suddenly, I was shocked. "So, am I pregnant?" I asked, my voice trembling with anxiety. My best friend danced with excitement. "I'm going to be an aunt. I need to tell my parents." I quickly grabbed her hand. "Let's go to the hospital first. What if it's not true? They'd be so disappointed." After the hospital visit, holding the test report and feeling my belly, I still couldn't believe it. Despite living together for 6 months, Matthew had always been so considerate. He'd said that even though I'm his fiancée, he worried that I might regret being with him, find him boring, or complain about his busy schedule, and end up finding another man. He didn't want to create any trouble for me, so we kept things mostly affectionate kisses, hugs, and playful lifts, except for one time, on my dad's birthday, when Matthew had a few drinks, and I deliberately teased him, leading to a passionate moment. Just thinking about his reaction that day, his strong chest, and everything else made me blush. My heart raced. I touched my flushed face and texted, "When you come back, I have some good news for you." That night was lively at our home, with my parents, Matthew's parents, and my best friend all gathered. They were all so dramatic, buying big bags of nutritional supplements, baby clothes, and even a stroller. My mom said, "Riley, don't worry, we'll keep this a secret. When Matthew comes back, he'll probably spin you around with joy." My brother, my best friend, said, "He'll probably be upset. He's been dreaming of having you all to himself." Matthew's mom added, "He'll probably test that saying parents are true love, and children are unexpected. He might get jealous of the baby." Their words made me even more eager to see Matthew's reaction and miss him even more. As Matthew's return approached, I felt inexplicably anxious. After our chat a few days ago, he hadn't been in touch at all. I sent messages, but he didn't reply. Worry I overthink things. My best friend stayed with me, took me out to clear my mind, and even confiscated my phone. She said, "Phones have radiation, which isn't good for the baby. Look less okay." I knew she was making excuses to keep me from worrying, but I didn't argue. In the middle of the night, my phone suddenly started ringing nonstop. Seeing an unfamiliar number at 2 a.m., I knew there was no reason for anyone to call me at this hour. My first thought was that something had happened to Matthew. My hands shook as I tried to answer the call. Seeing my panic, my best friend grabbed my phone. "I'll answer it." She looked worried too. I tried to convince myself, No, it might be Matthew. His phone might be dead. When the call connected, the person on the other end simply said, "Sister-in-law." Before falling silent, I anxiously gripped the edge of the bed. "When is Matthew coming back?" He's infected," the voice said, sounding hoarse. In an instant, I felt so cold, as if every last bit of strength in my body had been drained away. Before I even finished hearing what the other person was saying, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was already the third day. Staring at the hospital ceiling, I muttered, "How is Matthew doing?" As I said this, my heart felt like it was being pierced by needles, but I couldn't bring myself to cry. My mom gently brushed my hair and said, "Silly child, Matthew will be fine. You need to take care of yourself. If Matthew comes back and finds you like this, it'll hurt him even more. Don't forget, there's still your baby to think about." I nodded and murmured, "I'll wait for him to come back. He said he would, and he's never lied to me." I lay in bed, trying not to think too much, but tears flowed uncontrollably. No matter how I tried to control or wipe them, they just kept coming. My mom hugged me tightly. "It'll be okay. It'll definitely be okay." Ha ha. My best friend walked in, still with tears not fully wiped from her eyes. "My brother's symptoms aren't severe. He's already downgraded to mild. He should be back in a few days. He tried calling you but couldn't get through, so he might call again soon." Really? I got up from the bed, and tears suddenly streamed down my face. That's great. I knew he wouldn't leave me. At that moment, My phone rang. It was a video call from Matthew. I quickly composed myself, took several deep breaths, and forced a few smiles before answering. Sorry, little wife, for making you worry, Matthew said, saluting in an officer's-like manner. Then he continued, you've lost so much weight. Haven't you been eating well? Your eyes are red too. Have you been crying? I'm sorry for making you suffer with me. The scene changed as he started to act all cute. Look, I've lost weight too, but it's because I miss you. When I get back, I'm going to hug you tight, kiss you, and stick to you like glue. Normally, I'd be shy about saying that my mom was still around, but now I just smiled and said, yeah, I miss you too, and the baby misses you too. The baby. Matthew was taken aback at first, then sounded a bit aggrieved. So, do you love me or more? I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. I love both, he replied seriously. Don't worry, whether it's a boy or a girl, I'll have my parents take care of them. No one can disturb our little world. Are you even speaking English? My best friend, unable to tolerate it any longer, came over. It's also fine for your aunt to take care of the baby. This way, you won't have time to disrupt our little world. It's a win-win. Dad, Mom, look at him, how shameless. I even cried so much for you. What a waste of my tears. The room was filled with noise, but I knew that after the storm, there would be a rainbow. This story is now complete. Please subscribe to the channel to get the latest updates and enjoy a wealth of new novels updated daily.